Hi, it's Alastair again. At this point, this junction, I'm going to talk a little bit about the submission itself, looking at particular what to include and how to pull the documentation together. We try and make this as painless a process as possible, and hope that the HEIs use and utilise documentation that they've got already, but there is a collation issue, and there's the trying to address the BCS side of things and map against the BCS expectations. So the submissions are a fairly onerous exercise, but we think a very useful and valuable exercise in terms of reflecting on the provision. Certainly when I've gone through the process, and I have been on the other side of the table on a number of occasions, and I've found it a very useful and positive opportunity to reflect on the programmes, the provision, and think about what it is that we're seeking to achieve or seeking to do. And we hope that when you invite the BCS in, that you go through this process with that same ethos. BCS are very much of a mind that this is a developmental engagement where it's a group of peers talking to you about your programmes, and it's very easy to fall into the belief that it's a judgment and it's some kind of confrontational exercise. That's very much not the case at all. It's meant to be a positive, constructive process, so that we get better programmes at the end of the day, we get better graduates, and we get more employable graduates. That said, the process is fairly robust, both in terms of the submission and during the actual visit itself, and other colleagues will talk with you about that process during the visit. But if we take a step back and look at the submission, there are a number of things to look at. There is to be in hard copy, and numbered hard copy, please, page by page, just for referencing, a document about the department and indeed the programmes that you're putting forward. And we split this into Part A, which is the departmental information, the ethos, the quality assurance, how you go about resourcing, that sort of kind of thing, research in the department, links with industry, all those sort of building blocks about what the department is around. Then there are a series of sections in Part B, and the Part B is for each programme. So there's a programme-specific set of documents which look at the programme and module specs, outline those programme and module specs, give reference to exams and coursework and the assessment regime, consider the external examiner reports, think about the departmental responses to those reports. A very important part, and sometimes a neglected part, is how you deal with those external examiner reports, and again it's a procedural set of things about what you do with things and how you deal with things. We're looking for sample projects and indeed the marking sheets around those projects and the guidance for the students around those projects. The projects we used to ask for in hard copy, but I'm pleased to say that we've moved on and now asking for those as part of the electronic submission. We like to have the detail of the submission on a USB. Can be a CD, not a DVD unfortunately, but a USB. It really helps in being able to look at the documentation, work our way through that documentation. But that said, the material you put in the electronic format has to be easily navigable, has to be straightforward and simple, and fairly obvious the way things are. So it's got to be intuitive the way we work through it. It should be self-contained, not necessarily hyperlinks to a whole series of websites, but self-contained within the USB stick. It should be able to be run on any platform. More often than not, it's a fairly simple, straightforward thing. Excuse me, but people tend to have different machines, whether it's on a Microsoft-based machine or on an Apple-based machine. We've got to be able to see the materials. The documentation it should be in hard copies, I've mentioned, have the parts A and B. The programme specs, and then most importantly, the mapping, and the mapping in the of the process against the BCS criteria, and how your submission is going to address that mapping is really key. Personally, I always think this is a really good starting point in getting a whole set of staff across your department or school involved in the process, by getting them to work with you on the mapping and having that as a group exercise. If you think of the mapping as a matrix, and we're filling in crosses where something is being met and blanks when something's not being met, it's a really good indicator as to, if there's a row or a column where it's full of X's, you think, is that really what I want to say? Or if there's a row or column where it's almost empty, you think, oh, is that really what I'm going to look at submitting? Because when the panel comes to look at the submission, that's what one of the things that they'll hone in on is over-claiming or indeed under-claiming. It's also important that the HEI puts together a catalogue or listing of its core and option modules, and put that in tabular form to make it nice and easy for the panel to get an understanding of what is often a very complex and complicated situation. It's HEIs tend to forget, because they live and breathe their programme, that it's a group of strangers coming in, often with experience from their own institutions, but might be different. So keeping it simple and straightforward and easy to follow is very helpful when it comes to those mappings and those tables. I mentioned earlier about housekeeping, and when there is documentation, when there is hard copy documentation, when you're looking at the sequence of documentation, it's really helpful and really almost an essential to include page numbers. We ask that any hard copy material is double-sided, and that when you're binding it, it should be spiral bound, heat or comb bound, not in ring binders, because if ring binders have been passed around using the postal services, they tend to split and the like. So think about what you would like to receive through the post, and pretty much that'll fit with what we're looking for. If there's anything at all that changes to the programmes, or titles, or people involved, or the programmes that you want to withdraw, if you let the education team know, and you really, I would recommend that you stay in reasonable contact with the education team right from the outset, about when you decide you're going to go for submission, all the way through as we get closer to the pragmatics of the visit itself. It's always useful just as a kind of prompter, just to say, well, things are going okay, or things are a wee bit ahead of time or a little bit behind time, and it just sort of keeps you on track. One of the things I've found very useful when I've been putting together submission documents is to kind of have a timeline and an action plan about what it is I'm pulling together in creating that submission, and you might want to think about that. It's very helpful that you email the Section A to the BCS, and the details on email addresses are available for your information. Just carrying on with the submission, there are templates that are available for use, and the partly, as I mentioned earlier, is around that overview of the department or school, looking at a whole set of different things about quality assurance, the internal external reviews, the external examiners, how you respond to the external examiners, that process of ensuring that things are up to date. Things around how students are supported, the feedback mechanisms to students, and how we deal with feedback that's coming into the department from externals, etc. It's very useful in the Part A to go into detail about how research in the department, the school, feeds into the programmes. It's a very positive aspect of things, and to ensure that happens. And also to think about the industrial links, thinking about Industrial Advisory Board, how colleagues from industry are involved in in programme design, how they're involved in curriculum design, how they're involved in programme delivery, curriculum delivery. We might want to reference how they get involved in, say, in student projects, or might want to talk about KTPs, or a whole range of different things that come in to show the vibrancy of the programmes on offer. In terms of learning resources, in terms of the resource within the school, thinking about the academic staff, thinking about the capacity of staff, thinking about the experience of staff, which is normally referenced in CVs, but also thinking about support staff, the technician staff, admin staff, and how that maps in. So you've got a kind of a staff-student ratio around what the overall provision is. Also useful at this point to draw in spend on library, the spend on IT, the way that the budgets work, and the like. And in Part A, that is used to get that a feel for the way the department is organised, is managed, is the way that the organisation permeates across the academic staff, and what people understand about the department. So it's kind of the slightly longer than the helicopter pitch, but pretty much the helicopter pitch about what the department is about. Then in the Part B side of things, and there's one Part B section for each programme, we'd expect to see the programme spec, the module specs that you're interested in, not necessarily in terms of hard copy, but certainly reference to those, and we need to have access to those. Whether there's sandwich side of things, a placement normally between the second and final year, but not always. Whether there are any franchise agreements, whether you want, if there's franchise considerations that you want to get into play in the accreditation visit. It might mean that colleagues go into a different location or geography. Thinking about any distance learning aspects, and whether it's a virtual learning environment, or whether there's a different provision around distance learning programs. Some universities do this more than others, of course. In the Part B, there's one of the big areas, the legal, social, ethical, professional issues, and we ask specifically as to indicate where this is dealt with, whether it's taught, where it is assessed, where students get the opportunity to practice and research on their LSEPs, how they embed it into the programme, so which modules that's covered, and how it really permeates across the whole programme. Similarly, there's an expectation that the BCS have. There's a capstone project, if you like, and there are credit limitations as to what that should be. So it's got to be a minimum of 30 credits. Often it's 40, sometimes it's 60 credits in the final year. But we're looking to see what guidance the students have in undertaking that project, what support they've got, how the project is assured that it links to the title of the degree, and the like, how it meets the BCS criteria for projects, which are available in the BCS handbook and a guidance on accreditation. We also look for the admission and progression stats, and it's a way of measuring the health of the programme. And finally, in Part B, look at the assessment regulations. There might be programme-specific regs that you put in place, but if not, looking at the progression rules for moving between one stage, one level and the other. Look for exam papers and look at the detail of the exam papers, and show evidence that there's been moderation internally and externally, and the same for assignments and coursework. And that whole package together gives a flavour as to the provision from the HEIs, and forms the basis of the discussion that we have during the visit.